Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, esteemed leaders, champions of food security, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this high-level panel discussion with African heads of state and prominent U.S. leaders centered around the theme, Bold Measures to Feed Africa. Now, the last time I checked, the word bold is synonymous with audacious, daring, paradigm-breaking, and transformational. And it is therefore within this context that we come to our event this morning. My name is Victor Oladokun, and it's an honor to help kick off this event this morning. As we get ready for what I believe will be a truly thought-provoking session, let us reflect on a major paradox of our time. In the midst of extreme abundance, there is yet so little, particularly within the context of food. So, as we come together with a single vision for a world where every person has access to one of the most basic needs of all time, food, let us keep this within context. Today, we're honored to have with us extraordinary global leaders from every part of the world, and it really is an honor to have them with us. Many of them have been at different panel discussions. You're already familiar with them, but we also have with us two leading African heads of state with us this morning, and several governors from different parts of Nigeria who are with us in the audience this morning. Our gathering, therefore, is a reminder, a very powerful one, of the extraordinary possibilities and opportunities that Africa's food and agriculture industry holds for the continent and for the world itself. As Norman Borlaug, who this series of events is named after, once said, adequate food is both a moral right of all who are born into this world and the first component of social justice. Now, if that be the case, and it is the burden and the weight of leadership at both national and sub-regional levels, and one that all leaders must be committed to. We are therefore also truly honored to have with us today a global leader who, throughout his very illustrious career, with a laser focus, has innovatively responded to this burden of leadership by prioritizing food and agriculture, combating global hunger, and advancing agricultural innovation. His leadership reflects a deep understanding of the power of food to transform lives and to uplift nations. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium a leader who has repeatedly been dubbed Africa's optimist-in-chief, the 2017 World Food Prize laureate, and the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Victor, and good morning, everybody. I was just backstage listening to Secretary Blissac and a great man, Ambassador Andrew Young. And I couldn't but just, I heard what Secretary Blissac said. He said, take a chance on Africa. And he's right, but I'm here to tell you, actually invest big time in Africa. You have every reason to do so. Africa has today the largest population of young people in the world. If you look at New York Times, it says 1 out of 4 people in the world will be African. So Africa is going to be very important in terms of population. The market size is incredible. You're going to have 2.5 billion people in Africa. But also the size of the food and agricultural market is massive. You're looking at $1 trillion of food and agricultural market by 2030. In addition to that, you are also looking at the electric vehicle market. And I know you have a lot of investors here. The size of that market right now is $7.5 trillion. It's going to go to $57 trillion. Now, Africa has 90% of the platinum that is needed, 50% of the copper, manganese, and all that's needed. So Africa is the place. But for investors that are thinking of Africa before I go into the panel, just remember this. Africa is not as risky as people actually say. And don't believe me, believe actually what the data says. The data says by Moody's Analytics, they look at non-performing loans cumulatively on infrastructure for the last 14 years. And they looked at different parts of the world. What did they find? They found that first, the non-performing loans in Africa was 1.9%. Non-performing loans in North America was basically 6.6%. In Eastern Europe, it's 12.2%. If you look at it in Western Asia, about 4.3%. So if you take a look at it, Africa is not as risky as it is. So I'm basically here just to tell you, if you're not investing in Africa, I really wonder where you're actually going to be invested. But this morning, we're going to be talking about agriculture. And I want to say that Dr. Borlaug had Africa on his heart always. And one of the last words that he said before he went on to heaven was, remember Africa, never forget Africa. And I remember he told me that keep on scoring goals for Africa. So I'm delighted to be working together with Ambassador Branston, president of the World Food Prize Foundation, Emeritus President, Ambassador Kenneth Quinn, and our indefatigable and very dynamic Marshal Hussein in organizing at these events a special session like this on the plenary about Africa. I can tell you that the energy, the drive, and the passion that you see today in terms of we can feed ourselves, we have the confidence that we can do that, is actually quite extraordinary and it's quite palpable. And we bring leaders, and we will continue, Ambassador Branston, to bring African leaders here every single year so that you can continue to hear from us what we are doing. And also, I want to have an echo chamber in heaven for Dr. Borlaug to continue to hear that we are actually listening to what he said, and we're going to continue to make progress. For us at the African Development Bank, it's a big issue for us. When I was first elected president of the bank in 2015, I said we're going to feed Africa, and we are doing that. We put in over $8 billion into agriculture. We're going to put another $10 billion into agriculture in the next 5 years. And of course, our programs are working. We have the technologies for African agricultural transformation that brings together the CGIAR and, of course, national research systems, private sector across Africa. What has it done? It reached more than 12 million farmers, produced more than 25 million metric tons of food, and that is incredible, whether it's wheat, heat-tolerant wheat varieties, or water-efficient maize varieties from CIMMYT, or whether it is rice, drought-tolerant rice varieties, it is actually providing that. If you take a look at when Russia actually invaded Ukraine, everybody got scared. Africa was going to lose 30 million metric tons of food. We didn't get scared. We knew we had the technologies and the capacity to feed ourselves. The African Development Bank put up $1.5 billion for an emergency food production facility. We put it there so that we can actually close that gap, and we did. Today, that particular program in 2 years, with US government support as well, with Japan, Netherlands, also Norway and Germany, we've been able to actually reach already more than 12 million farmers. They produce 35 million metric tons of food. And of course, the value of that food is $13.2 billion, which is above the $12 billion that we thought we were going to do. And as we come to the panel, I want to talk, you'll be hearing from us about the Feed Africa Summit, which was a summit that we put together last year that brought together 34 heads of state and government, including the President of Ireland, together 74 ministers of agriculture, central bank governors, private sector, farmers, civil society, all across with one thing on our mind. How are we going to have a plan, execute the plan to feed Africa within 5 years? That's it. And I want to say that that's going very well. During that summit, we mobilized $30 billion. And the African Development Bank put in $10 billion for the next 5 years. But after the summit, we have already mobilized $72 billion to implement the Food and Agricultural Delivery Compact that we agreed there to be able to do. And so I just wanted to tell you that it's a new dawn in Africa. We now have the technologies to feed ourselves. I've never been this confident that we can actually feed ourselves. We have the platforms that can scale, with TAT and the CGIAR working together to scale things for us. We have, of course, the policies, the institutions, and the financing to be able to do this. What we need, as Dr. Borlaug always says, is I don't need 20 leaders. I only need 2 leaders. And they, if they are passionate enough, they can give us that green revolution. And we now have the political will to do that. And I have no doubt that by God's grace, when we finish this, Dr. Borlaug, you know he has a lot of energy. I'm sure in heaven he will get up and be dancing all around the place, and God will ask him what's going on. He said, well, these guys did it. They didn't forget what I said. And that's Dr. Borlaug for you. And so today, I have the distinct honor of bringing to Iowa two of our foremost leaders in Africa. They are amazing leaders. One is His Excellency, President Julius of Sierra Leone, and the second is Her Excellency, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania. They are both strongly committed, resource-oriented, and passionate about their countries and about feeding Africa. So without further ado, now to kick us off, please join me in first welcoming on stage an extraordinary leader, a leader with a heart, a global advocate, and a grassroots people-focused leader, and Africa's only female president, Her Excellency, President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania. Please. Yes, please. Well, thank you very much, Your Excellency. First, welcome to Iowa. And I know the weather, it's a little bit getting colder. I always say Iowa has a way of welcoming us. When we first arrive, the weather is always great. And the last day, towards the last day, it goes down. So I always say that on the last day, enjoy your cold, and we will send you sunshine from Africa. It's a tradable commodity, so just keep that in mind. Your Excellency, Madam President, it's a delight to have you here. First, let me start with the words of thanks and appreciation. Right here in this hall, you have a lot of global leaders in agriculture, many of them supportive of the global centers, CGIAR. And I know that when CGIAR centers, you have IITA with you there, you have so many centers right there in Tanzania. And when they had some challenges, I picked up my phone and I called you. And she actually said, yes, what exactly is it? I said, I want you, Her Excellency, to consider some things for them so that they can continue to have the passion to deliver their work. And she did. And please put your hands together and thank her for the leadership that she's providing and for your support to the CGIAR. Thank you. And they're doing a great job. You know, they're led by great ladies, you know, Dr. Sibanda and all of these DGs. They're doing a fantastic job, and I have the highest regard for them. It's the best investment you can make in agriculture is the CGIAR. Now, let's start with our panel, Your Excellency, Madam President. You were there with me in Dakar last year, where we had all the heads of state there. And you went into the boardroom where there was a discussion of the Food and Agriculture Delivery Compact for your country, Tanzania. And I was amazed you stayed there, Madam President, for hours. You know, and you were more like a CEO, actually, in that boardroom. And you put together the Food and Agriculture Delivery Compact. So can you tell us where you are on that journey to implementing the commitments that you made, Your Excellency?
Thank you, President of the African Development Bank. Yes, you said rightly that we were together in Dakar, Senegal, when we prepared the Tanzania Agriculture and Food Delivery Compact. And it was widely discussed, and I had a lot of contributions from all the people who were there, who attended the boardroom. And we left Dakar with an energy and passion to go and implement one, increasing productivity of agricultural produce so that we have the food security in the country, but also in the region. But again, there was a point of working or combating or reducing the post-harvest losses, of which we have implemented that one as well. But also, we left Dakar with an assignment of creating institutions to support the implementation of the compact. And we did that in Tanzania. But again, showing the political will by supporting or backing the ambitious targets which we put for ourselves. And so Tanzania, we have decided that not investing in agriculture is much more costly rather than investing in it. Not investing in agriculture results in so many things, but when you invest in agriculture, you do your economic growth. So we did invest in agriculture. So talking of food security, allow me to inform this gathering that Tanzania is now 128% food self-sufficiency. So we are feeding the country, but as well as we are feeding the region. But also on food security, there are a lot to be done. Is food productivity, but then food quality, accessibility, and affordability. So we are still working on the other factors. We have done productivity. We are now working on quality, but again, accessibility by building infrastructure. And we are doing it in all ways of infrastructure, ground infrastructure, air, but also water transport and railways. But again, affordability to our people. We tried to remove all that taxes and levies that would make food expensive to our people. And so we are trying very hard to control the food basket inflation. And our inflation ranges from 3, goes up to 3.5, but never up than that. So we are controlling food inflation. But again, on post-harvest losses, yes, we are now undergoing operations of constructing food storages. We do construct the silos, but again, other means of food storages. And we do have plans to have cold chain storage, because we have managed to improve production of horticulture in Tanzania. And we are in the business of horticulture. So we have to have cold chain storages. But again, value addition, which contributes, again, limited value additions causes wastages, and so post-harvest losses. So we are now working on value addition. We do have the National Industrial Processing Policy or framework that insists on value addition. And right now, our food processing industries or factories, they are getting from the agriculture sector, or agriculture sector contribute about 65% of the raw materials in the food processing industry. So that's on post-harvest losses control. But again, we are working on creating jobs for youth and women, making them being involved in agriculture. Before, there was a myth that youth didn't want to involve themselves in agriculture because of several setbacks, lack of capital, limited access to land, so many things. But now we have been working in bottleneck all those hurdles. And now we have a program called the Building a Better Tomorrow for Youth. And youth,
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yes.
That particular program. We're putting in $130 million in support of that, Building a Better Tomorrow. Can you tell us about that program? Because I know it's very special to you.
Building a Better Tomorrow, actually, we framed the program to create jobs for youth and women. You know, the unemployment in our country, it was rising. You know, our nation is very young nation. So we have so many, the population is about 65% of young people. And these young people are graduating each year, entering to the labor market. And they have nothing to do. The government can't absorb them all. We have tried to bring in private sector. Employment is there by the private sector, but still, youth don't have anything to do. And we created this program, the Building Better Tomorrow for Youth, which is training the youth and women in agriculture, crop farming, livestock, fisheries, and also forestry. And after the training, for those who are involved in crop farming, we provide them land, 10 acres of land each, and they are doing cluster farming on the crops of their choice, or crops which are on the market. And they are supported by irrigation services, extension services, mechanization, and even modernization of agriculture sector. So this is about building better tomorrow.
Yeah.
So youth, we have been working with about 11,000 youth in all those 4 areas. And the first batch is out, graduated, and they have started harvesting what they have.
So they think agriculture is cool now.
Yes. So now they're singing agriculture.
Yes, good.
And those who are in livestock, they're singing in livestock keeping and other areas, fisheries and forestry for forestry products. So that's about.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. We thank the bank, the African Development, for supporting that program.
Yeah.
And of course, some other organization and international organizations are coming in to support us with that program. And I think it's going to the greater extent, reduce the unemployment rate.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Madam President. You talked about the fact that you're already 125% or so self-sufficient. And yesterday, Victor was saying that quite a number of countries in the region, anyway, come to you to actually get food and all of that. However, potential, you still have greater potential in Tanzania. You have 95 million hectares of land. With all of what you've done, you've only actually cultivating 23% of the 44 million hectares of land that is arable.
Right.
So your potential is massive, and of course, there's no market for potential. One can. So what else are you trying to do? I know you have this program that you call the Kilimo Biashara Agenda 1030.
Yes.
Which is again to unlock that potential even more.
Yes.
So what exactly are you trying to achieve with Kilimo Biashara Agenda 1030?
Okay. Kilimo Biashara literally means agribusiness or agriculture-led economy.
Right.
That's Kilimo Biashara. And it's the same way involving youth and women in agribusiness. Because before, people thought agriculture is farming, eating and selling a little. But they didn't know that in today's world, talking of food insecurity in the world, agriculture could be a very big business. And it is said that the coming billionaires will be coming from agriculture sector. So this is what we are doing for our youth and women. Within the Kilimo Biashara, we have the BBT in it, but again, we have other smaller programs, like supporting the smallholder farmers with capital, but also establishing the mechanization centers that will provide the farm implement services closer to the farmers where they are and at affordable cost. So that's another way. But again, construction or establishment of irrigation schemes. You know, Tanzania used to harvest once a year, but with irrigation scheme, as you said it rightly, that we do have 44 million hectares of arable land, out of which only 23% used, and it's only 10% of it under irrigation.
Wow.
So we still have a greater potential for irrigation farming. So irrigation is another priority for us. And yeah, I think those are the areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Madam
But
President.
again, there's an important area here, research and development.
Yes.
Research and development, we are pouring a lot of money in research and development, but we are also working with those organizations which are there.
Yeah, the CGIR.
Yes, which are there in the country, plus TARI, Tanzania Research Institute of Agency. So research and development, we are dealing in producing improved seeds. But then apart from producing improved seeds, propagation or multiplication or distribution is another area which you are working vigorously to make farmers get those improved seeds plus subsidized fertilizer. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Madam President. I know you are also known as a very pro-private sector president. And obviously, the opportunities are quite immense. We were backstage, we were listening to Ambassador Andrew Young talking about opportunities in Africa and also Secretary Blisak. And can you talk, we got a lot of CEOs here and so on. What are those things, or what are your policies to encourage private sector more to invest in Tanzania, or more specifically in agriculture?
More specifically on agriculture.
And agribusiness.
Yeah, in agribusiness. Okay. First of all, let me tell the audience that Tanzania is very strategically located within East Africa, and it's a gate to all sides of Africa. When we're in Tanzania, you can easily reach South Africa, East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and others. But you can go up Africa through DRC. So we are strategically located with and endowed with a lot of water bodies. We have 3 major lakes, Lake Victoria, Lake Nyasa, and Lake Tanganyika, of which we can use that water for agriculture, and land is there. Land is there. So apart from strategical location and endowments, Tanzania also boasts of the market size. Ourselves in Tanzania, we are about 61 million, but then East African community, we are about 300. And with SADC, we are about 500 million. So that's a bigger market. And when you talk, or if you talk of African Free Trade Area, through DRC, you can reach all angles of Africa, and that's about 1.2 billion people. So that's a bigger market.
So, Madam President, I think that's well said. But to get that market, you're also doing something, which is this infrastructure, especially the rail, the standard gauge rail, that is linking you to Burundi and other parts of the region for that market. Can you share your views about that? We're glad to be supporting you. It's a $3.2 billion investment, but it's very critical for regional integration.
Connectivity and connectedness, very important for if you want to implement the African Free Trade Area. We have to be connected, because there are other parts of of Africa, they suffer from hunger, and other parts of Africa, they have bumper harvest, but the way of transporting food from one side to another side, that's a challenge. So we in Tanzania are working on infrastructure development, and it's both hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure for connectivity and connectedness. We are working on constructing the 2,000 kilometers railway, standard gauge railway, which will connect the port of Dar es Salaam to Burundi, then to DRC. and that's that central part of Tanzania. But again, to the south, we want to have a railway which is going to connect Mtwara Port and port in Lake Nyasa, the Baba Bay Port, which is going to connect us to Malawi and do the agribusiness with Malawi as well. But again, with DRC, we have ports in Lake Tanganyika, 2 ports in Lake Tanganyika, which are leading us to Lubumbashi and Kalemi in DRC. So that's for railway and water transport. But we are working on roads connecting the country itself, regions and districts of the country, but again connecting with the neighboring countries like Mozambique, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and others. So we are very well connected, and we are working on it. Thanks for the bank, both banks,
Yes.
African Development Bank and the World Bank,
Yes.
for supporting us in that area.
Thank you, Madam President.
But again, we do have the broadband,
Yes.
only in Tanzania, and then it's going to be extended to the neighboring countries. So Tanzania is well connected.
Excellent, Madam President. We have very little time left, but I want to ask you 2 more questions before we get on stage.
Yes.
One is, one issue you are very passionate about is it's one thing to produce a lot of food. Women, of course, form the larger part of the farming population, but precisely what I want to say is about cooking food.
Yes.
So we lose about 300,000 women every year from trying to cook food because they use, charcoal, firewood, and other biomass, and they carry babies on their back, and 300,000 kids die every single year. You have been a global champion on this particular issue. Can you tell us why you are so passionate about this and what you're doing in Tanzania to deal with this particular issue?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, before coming up with a clean cooking agenda, I was a champion on generation equality, looking at women's economic rights. So I've been looking at various aspects of women economic rights, and we have been working extensively on them. But then one particular subject which I said I have to make the world know that when we talk of energy transition in manufacturing and other areas, we are forgetting that cooking food also needs energy transition. You said it right that women are dying of respiratory diseases because of using we'll call it that type of energy, which produces various fumes and gases, which destroys their eyes, but also cause respiratory diseases. So I thought I should make Africa wake up and the world know that we need energy transition in cooking, so that we save women dying from respiratory diseases, but 2, we are saving the environment. Yeah. Because in Tanzania, we are losing about 400,000 hectares, say each year.
400,000?
For the deforestation. Wow. Yeah. And this deforestation is for forestry business, but also for fuel wood energy, for women to be able to cook. So I've come with this agenda, and what we have done is making sure that we do rural electrification. So in Tanzania now, out of 12,300 villages we have, almost all the villages, almost all, have got electricity.
Oh, wow.
We are now doing and again, thanks to the multilateral organizations which have supported us on that. But we are now in discussion with major gas producers, and these are Total, Shell, and their partners who do have gas deposits in Tanzania. We are now finalizing discussion about establishing the LPG, which is going to help us distribute gas, for cooking and for other use, for manufacturing and other use. But again, we're endowed with deposits of charcoal, of which now our experts are using the charcoal debris to make the cooking briquettes, which again been considered as clean energy. So we are doing a lot, and I would like to call upon my fellow African leaders to pick this agenda to save our women from respiratory diseases.
Thank you, Madam President. And we're delighted to be working together on this. And as you know, the African Development Bank, we've put in $2 billion towards making sure that women can have clean cooking solutions. And so, and just to close, thank you for accepting to, Ajay Banga was here just 2 days ago.
Yes.
President of the World Bank. And I know we're having the Energy Summit for Africa. And you're hosting us in Tanzania.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. And that's going to be 27 to 28 of January next year.
We are eagerly waiting.
Yeah. And just as I close, in 1 minute, you are such an extraordinary leader. How would you like to be remembered when it comes to food security in your country?
Okay. First, attaining food security, which we did. But then attaining food security alone is not enough. We are facing the malnutrition challenge, despite that we are food self-sufficiency. So I'm working on it vigorously, combating malnutrition to our children 0 to 5 years, combating malnutrition. But again, we are working on the early child development program. And we are looking at this program in 2 aspects. One is breastfeeding, again, nutrition and health matters. But again, early child education starts bringing them with all what we want the future generation to be. So, number 2, I want to be remembered reducing unemployment rate.
Okay.
If I will manage using agriculture sector, reducing unemployment rate, then I think the one who will be coming after me has very little work to do just to sustain where I ended.
Wow, incredible. You know, Madam President, you took us on a long journey from Dakar to this place.
Yes.
Institutions to support the compacts. The strong political will is there. You said not investing in agriculture is more costly than actually investing in it. Tanzania, under you, has achieved largely food self-sufficiency. You're still working on productivity, access, affordability, and quality.
One thing, Mr. President.
Yeah.
That Tanzania, we showed the leadership.
Yes.
We showed the political will.
Yeah.
We improved or increased the budget for agriculture sector threefold.
I was just going to say that. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So all the things that you said, but the thing I wanted to just say is, as you said, infrastructure. Ambassador Kenneth Quinn is the one who actually told me this, that infrastructure is so critical to anything that we do, and that when he was ambassador in Vietnam, where the infrastructure ended was where, from there, it was where the poverty, started, and it created all the Khmer Rouge and all of that. So infrastructure is very critical. I like what you said about clean cooking. Thank you very much for that, and how you want to be remembered. Addressing food security, malnutrition, early childhood development, reducing unemployment. But I will tell you how I think you are going to be also remembered.
Okay.
Is remembered as Madam President, the Chief Marketing Officer of Tanzania.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Yeah. Please join me in thanking her very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. No, we didn't use it. We didn't use it. Yeah, we didn't use it. Thank you very much. Now, it is my great honor and privilege to introduce to you another extraordinary African leader, a man with passion and drive to transform the economy and the agriculture of his country, a man who started off actually as a young military officer. He was 31 years old in those days. Then later on, he went into politics himself, and he has been re-elected democratically president twice. A man who lost his father at a very young age and was brought up by his mother, and who wants to make sure that hunger is made history, of course, with military precision and presidential gusto. Please welcome His Excellency, President Julius, the President of Sierra Leone. Your Excellency.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
How are you?
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, where we start?
Your Excellency, thank you very much for coming to Iowa. And I know you like rice, and here they eat corn. I do hope that you're liking corn. I wanted to start by, we were there together in Dakar for the Feed Africa Summit. And we were on stage just like this, and you had just finished a panel. And I walked up to you. We were running a bit late for lunch, and we didn't want to say we're feeding Africa and then starving the presidents. And so I walked up to you and said, Mr. President, how would you like to do this? Would you like to go into the boardrooms where we had lots of people waiting for you with the other presidents, or you would like to go to lunch? And you said to me, no, well, look, we will go to those boardrooms and we'll give up our own lunch and go to those boardrooms, then figure out how we are going to feed our people. It left a great impression on me about your commitment, where your heart is. And I know you have something there called the Feed Salon as your plan to actually get your country to feed itself. Can you share with us on the journey from Dakar to here the progress you've made on your Feed Salon strategy for Sierra Leone?
Thank you very much. For us in leadership, especially for low-income countries like ours, there's always a sacrifice to make, and we should be ready to do that. I was ready to forego lunch, which I always catch up on, and attend to more important things, especially when I knew that that one had a time bound. So thank you very much for this forum. We have embarked on Feed Salon, which is a way to transform our agriculture sector. We have a lot of what it takes to be able to feed our nation, but we have not paid attention to food security in the past. And what I have done after my first term, which where I put in premium on education, now I have jumped on to food security. And why am I doing this? This is because our vulnerabilities came to light when we had the problems in Ukraine. And I've also realized that no country has successfully moved on in life without a successful agrarian revolution. Agriculture is the basis for development, and therefore we have made Feed Salon as a part of our strategy to be able to develop as a nation. What are we doing? We are boosting agricultural productivity to not only be able to feed Sierra Leone, but to be able to export our goods and bring in revenue to the state. We also have malnutrition. We want to be able to deal with that within the scope. And we have a lot of unemployment. And I believe that a successful agrarian revolution will take in quite a lot of the young people who are out there seeking jobs, especially for the women and youth who we need to support to be able to go through. But looking at economic development, I believe that with 60% of our population involved in agriculture and agriculture being the mainstay of our economy, it is only when we pay particular attention to it that we will be able to deal with economic development, grow our economy in a way that is sustainable. And we are embarking on agriculture this time around in a way that we deal with the challenges we have today, but also leave room for future generations. So it is going to be smart agriculture, sustainable agriculture, one that we build resilience in the system, the food systems of Sierra Leone. So that is what Feed Sierra Leone is about, boosting the agricultural sector to create employment, deal with malnutrition, reduce import of rice. And already we have been able to reduce the import bill. We started by $20 million, and we want to get rid of over $200 million a year that we use for rice importation.
Yeah, I was just going to come back to the rice one. You have so much potential in rice, and I like your country because you eat so much rice. And two things that come to my mind was when I was actually recruited as a chief economist at that time, principal economist for the West Africa Rice Development Association. At my job interview, your countryman, Dr. Eugene Terry, was then the director general. And he asked me, why do you want to work at the West Africa Rice Development Association? I said, because I eat rice 3 times a day. And then I was hired to an economist to go figure it out. And then one of the people I work with was also your countryman, and also somebody that we all know here and love a lot, Dr. Monty Jones. Dr. Monty Jones was an extraordinary scientist, a colleague of mine. We worked together in Bompay River, all the work on rice we did together. And he was also a winner of the World Food Prize here. And it's sad to know that Monty has gone home, but his extraordinary contributions have impacted Africa in incredible ways. May so rest in peace, and we love him very much, and please accept our condolences from myself and everybody else on our dear friend, Monty Jones. One of the things that I know that you're passionate about is what you just said now about you're spending $200 million importing rice, but you have all the agroecologies, upland, lowland, irrigated mangrove rice. And so what's your plan to turn that around and turn Sierra Leone into not only self-sufficient in rice, which I think is a low bar, to become a net exporter of rice in Africa, given that you have all of these agroecologies and significant potential with technology and land?
Well, we have identified these agroecologies, and what we want to do, or what we are doing currently, is to create the enabling environment, not only the policy environment, but also dealing with infrastructure. We want to de-risk, because the aim of Feed Sierra Leone is to encourage the private sector to lead, to be in the driving seat as far as boosting the agricultural productivity is concerned. So as much as we can in terms of roads, access to electricity, water, bridges, we are de-risking as much as we can. With support from our partners, we are building the roads, creating all the facilities so that we invite the world to go there and invest in Sierra Leone. We want to make sure that those we invite and those who accept that invitation to invest in our agricultural sector will be able to have returns on their investment. And so we are creating that sort of enabling environment. And I must say thanks to so many partners around the world, including the African Development Bank, who is supporting us to be able to de-risk investment in agriculture. It's always a bit tricky, especially when it comes to Africa. But we want to assure would-be investors that we will be with you all the way from the point you enter to the point that you are able to repatriate your profits.
Excellent. And on that, yesterday you had a roundtable with top US government officials, and I joined in part of the conversations. from USDA to USAID, and also to private sector industry leaders that were talking to you. And the whole area of raising the productivity, you said, you will need seeds, improved seed, fertilizers, and in particular mechanization. I know you're very passionate about mechanization. Can you share with us some of those policies and some of those incentives and programs you have in mind to encourage private sector investment, especially in the area of seeds and fertilizers and mechanization as you modernize your agricultural sector?
Definitely, the traditional means of agriculture has been a way of life for our people, and that is why we have not been competitive. We have not been able to produce enough to catch up with the population growth. So we have to mechanize, and we have to make sure that we have done our soil survey. We have a database of that, and so we will be able to apply agrochemicals accordingly, not just according to our own whims and caprices. So we are doing the foundational work necessary to really embark on a successful agricultural revolution in Sierra Leone. Everything and anything from policies to infrastructure to tractorization to soil survey and everything. And in fact, we are still seeking partners who can technically help us, because it is such an important process that we want to make sure we don't miss any bit at all. So the essence of me coming out here, which is a great forum, is to share the Sierra Leone story and to invite those who are interested, because food security knows no boundaries. It is an international issue, and we should deal with it collectively around the world. And so I'm using this opportunity to really invite. We don't have all it takes in terms of technical knowledge, in terms of the finances, in terms of everything, but we are an ambitious nation and we want to succeed. And that is why we are seeking partnerships around the world, be it technical, financial, even the regulatory mechanism to be able to attract investors. We are looking at all of those aspects of the agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday in one of the sessions we were talking about with the folks in the US government, you recounted an experience with your farm, and there was another young guy who was coming. I guess you set up some model farms and somebody else came in, a young person who wanted a job and maybe set up a farm. And I'm saying that because you have 60% of your population between the age of 15 and 35, and unemployment in the country is quite high in terms of youth unemployment. So how do you plan to use agriculture, given its significant labor absorptive capacity, to create more jobs? Because I know jobs are very, very important to you.
We have a very young population, but unfortunately, quite a lot of the young people look down on agriculture because of how it's been done. It's not been profitable, it's been backbreaking, it's been subsistence farming for the most part. I've heard you say once that you want to make agriculture sexy. That means make it profitable. Once we can create an enabling environment that makes agriculture a profitable venture, we will be able to attract the young people. And this is how I want to deal with, one of the methods I want to use to deal with unemployment in Sierra Leone. How do we attract the young people? Most people get out of university or college and they're looking out for jobs. So it's not just about acquiring the knowledge and skills, but how can they acquire entrepreneurial spirit and knowledge so that they set up their own businesses and create employment for others. So we are doing quite a lot in that space to encourage young people who leave universities and the colleges to go and work. The story you're talking about was a young man who I've been encouraging young people to go into agriculture, but of course, they don't have access to capital. Yeah. Yes, the requisite capital to embark on successful agriculture. So, on my way to one of my farms, I just saw a group of young people working in a farm very close to the road. This must have been deliberate to attract my attention, definitely. I later realized. So I stopped and I went to them. What are you doing? So, well, I've been looking for a job. I'm a graduate. I worked for 4 years. I haven't found a job, and so I decided to start my own farm. And I was able to pick him up and say, you have to go to the ministry. You are a great example of what I'm trying to preach out to the world. I am doing farming because I love farming myself, but I also want it to be an example for everybody that we don't look down on farming because of the challenges we've had. So we are encouraging the young people by creating mother farms where we bring them and show how they can also find a living by engaging in food production in different parts of agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. President. Despite all the gains that you've had, one challenge that you still have is that of malnutrition and stunting. You have 30% of the children under the age of 5 that are actually affected by malnutrition and stunting. And of course, one knows that stunted children, cognitive ability is affected. And it also has a huge cost for the economy because, as I always say, stunted children today will lead to stunted economies tomorrow. And so what are you doing? What kind of programs do you have in mind to make sure that you address this issue of malnutrition, especially stunting of children?
Well, that is why I said we are lashing onto food production in ways that are sustainable, that takes into consideration nutrition. It's not just to produce food, but it's to make sure that the food is nutritious. So making sure that we have micronutrients that support growth and development of the kids is very important for us. We have some particular types of potatoes and other crops, a rice that is infused with certain vitamins so that it's not just a carbohydrate, but the vitamins that we support the growth and development of especially the young people. So we are aware of stunting. We are aware of how it affects everything. In fact, the school feeding program we have, which is supported by the USDA, is one of the things that, yesterday I had to thank the USDA agency for the great work that they have done in supporting our school feeding program. In my last term, I paid a lot of premium on education because for me, I'm dealing with foundational issues of development, education, or human capital development. The simplest way I have always put it is that I want to feed the brain, feed the tummy, and take care of the superstructure of the human being. And that person is good to go. And to do that, we have to make sure that even the food that goes in is catering to the needs of the nutrients that are needed for the growth and development of our children. So it's a huge task, and because it is quite technical, and that is why we are seeking partnerships around the world with institutions, with individuals, to be able to embark on a successful agricultural revolution. Food insecurity knows no borders. And a hungry man is an angry man.
A very angry one.
Yes, so we are trying to reduce the anger. We are trying to make sure that we have a more peaceful world by making sure that people have.
Yeah, and it's also about dignity as well.
Correct.
Yeah, and talking about partnerships, about the issue of nutrition, you have right here folks that are working on it. It's something called Harvest Plus, and they're part of the CGIAR system. And they do quite a lot about biofortification. So whether it's orange flesh sweet potato or whether it's iron fortified beans and all of those. So in your quest to do these macronutrient deficiency issues, your partners around here that can really help you. I had a great discussion with the Harvest Plus people yesterday, and they were telling me about how they could actually get to about 1 billion people with these biofortified crops. So if anybody, one of you is around, and just let me know, I'll try and link you to the president, see how we can help him in his vision for his country. Mr. President, as we bring this to a close, one area I wanted to ask you, it's about agricultural financing. It's quite difficult to get financing into the agricultural sector because the banks are always so risk averse. And so what are you doing about that? And what can we do to support you, not only for farmers, but also agribusinesses in Sierra Leone as part of your Feed Sierra Leone strategy?
That is an extremely important issue as far as the embarking on agriculture in Sierra Leone is concerned. We want to move from subsistence to agriculture that can bring in real income and revenue to the state. This means that there's a lot of capital needed, especially at the outset, and we have to make the venture itself profitable. But it is extremely difficult. We have ventured with, we started with 28 million, made that available to SMEs to be able to encourage them. We are opening up the space. But we can do better than that. And that is why we are out here again. I know that different methods have been tried, tested around the world, and we know that there are organizations that know how to do that better. But we are definitely in need of affordable capital to be able to encourage, especially the locals, to embark on successful agriculture. So we are looking for partnerships. We have started as a government. We will continue, but I think we need support, and that is where the Ward family comes in handy, and that is why I'm actually here.
Mr. President, as I close this, you said something that impacted me a lot about your parents, and you talked about your growing up days. You lost your dad so early, and you were brought up by your mother, and so you feel very passionate about those that are vulnerable in the population. And so as you look at your legacy as president, in particular in terms of what you just said now, that about food security and all of that, but maybe just in terms of other things, how would you like to be remembered as president, and how would you like to be remembered in particular as president who actually helped you deal with these issues of food insecurity and unlocking the potentials of your country in agriculture? How would you like to be remembered?
In my little experience in leadership, I've come to realize that, especially when it comes to Africa, all we talk about is the natural resources that is abundant on the continent, and therefore we pay a lot of attention to the diamond, the gold, the rutile, the bauxite, iron ore, and the many others that are available. What I have done is to identify the human being as the most important asset for national development. And that is why I started with education, investing in the human being's ability to have the knowledge, a fit-for-purpose education that can make the human being meaningful, successful personally, nationally. So I would prefer to be remembered as a human capitalist, one that paid a lot of attention to developing the human being, which is the most important pivotal element in development in all walks of life, actually. Because whether you talk about leadership, we talk about agriculture, it is the human being that has to have a sense of purpose, that has to have the knowledge and the determination to want to change. So I may be involved in agriculture, education, and many other human endeavors. But what I would like to be remembered for is the human being. Like you rightly recounted, I lost my dad when I was only 4, and my mom could not read or write. I started school without even a pair of slippers, and I have been able to reach this level because of not only hard work, but because of the determination of my mom that I should be educated. And that is why when I had the opportunity to lead my country, I made education free for every child in Sierra Leone, because there may be a lot of other factors that has helped me to be here, but if I did not have education, moving from my village and to be at the helm in my nation would not have been possible. So I've looked at every other thing around the human being. How do you make the human being fit for purpose in the 21st century? Whether it's from the village or the city, they must acquire skills. And in the acquisition of those skills, we have realized that food is important. Like you said, the child that goes to school hungry will not learn. The teacher will not teach properly. Even the politician who is hungry is always angry. So that is why we started with education, but I've gone back for food security. And to end it all, I've never forgotten the women folk, because I was raised by a woman who could not read but she understood the value of education and insisted that I went to school and followed me. I don't know how she did, because she didn't know how I did my homework, whether I was passing my exams, but she insisted that I went to school, and I owe everything that I have today, I am today, to a woman who did not go to school.
Wow. That's amazing. Mr. President, thanks for sharing with us all these thoughts and also speaking to us from your heart, about your country, that you're going to feed Salone, and we have no doubt that you're going to do that. You've shown clear political will for agriculture. Rice, of course, you will make sure that Sierra Leone becomes rice self-sufficient and becomes a powerhouse in rice. You're modernizing agriculture. You say we have to modernize. And I fully agree with you. You also said the youth don't have access to capital, and you're working on that. And as you know, we have the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks that we can put in place to support you on that. I like also what you said about malnutrition to us, about not just producing food, but we need micronutrients and expanding school feeding program in Sierra Leone. And of course, you said a very nice quote here. We want to move from subsistence to agriculture that can actually bring income and revenue to the state. You want to feed the brain, the tummy, and get a fit-for-purpose person, Sierra Leone there. And of course, when I ask you about how you want to be remembered, you want to be remembered as a human capitalist. I actually like that very, very much. And ladies and gentlemen, here you have a leader who said, and I quote, "We are an ambitious nation. We want to succeed. We want to learn." That means that they need partnerships, they need support, and I can't think of a better place to say, please support him, because his heart is there. Thank you so very much. Mr. President, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Kindly be seated. We still have just one more speaker before we leave, a very important one for that matter, so kindly take your seats. We're about wrapping up our program shortly. But before we do, we'd like to say a very, very big thank you to President Samia Suluhu Hassan and to President Julius Bio for really invigorating our discussion with Dr. Adesina this morning with insightful ideas and for the bold policy measures and infrastructural transformations that you are both putting in place to develop your respective countries. Dr. Adesina has already summarized most of the highlights of what it is that you're committed to, but I'd like to say a very big thank you at this point to President Samia Suluhu for her strong commitment as a champion and as an ambassador for providing clean cooking for women on the continent and to help end the plague of 300,000 women and children dying each year from smoke inhalation. I think for that alone and for all the other measures that she is putting in place, kind of give her a very warm round of applause. And to President Bio, the president of an ambitious country that really recognizes the dynamics of change at the speed of light, thank you for your vision and strong commitment to create a smart, sustainable cereal loan through private sector engagement in mechanization, fertilizers, improved seeds, and a strong commitment again to attract young men and women into agriculture and agribusiness and to provide jobs that are relevant and truly profitable. With leaders like yourself on the continent, the future is bright, and we thank you for gracing this session today with your presence. Again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please give them a warm round of applause. They certainly are beacons of hope, and their visionary leadership, again, helps us advance food security, not just in Africa, but around the world. It is an honor to welcome another very distinguished individual who is passionately committed to food security on the continent. She spent her life, again, selflessly pushing the agenda. Under her guidance, USAID has remained steadfast in its mission to promote sustainable development and address global food insecurity. Her personal dedication exemplifies the spirit of partnership and collaboration that is much needed and which drives real, lasting change across the world. Please welcome to the stage, as she comes to give her address, Isobel Coleman, the Deputy Administrator of USAID. As our last speaker of the day, I expect a really warm and very thunderous applause. So don't fail us now. Isobel Coleman. Come on, I think we can do better. Come on, let's keep it going.
Thank you, Victor, for that introduction. And I also want to express my appreciation to Presidents Hassan and President Bio for their very thoughtful reflections earlier on the panel. It is very much an honor to be here today with you all representing the U.S. Agency for International Development. As we have heard, the level of need remains great in Africa. It is one of the few regions in the world where hunger and undernourishment have continued to rise in recent years. However, Africa is also home to 12 of the 20 fastest growing economies on the planet. And the continent is poised to become the world's second fastest growing economic region. This is a moment of tremendous opportunity. With smart policy reforms and increased trade and investment, we can realize the potential of this dynamic region while seriously tackling poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. The US government's Global Hunger Initiative, Feed the Future, prioritizes investments in Africa, providing more than $400 million each year to drive inclusive and sustainable agricultural-led growth, improve nutrition outcomes, and build resilience. Feed the Future's locally led model has yielded remarkable success over its first decade. In areas where Feed the Future has worked, poverty, hunger, and child stunting all declined by 20 to 25%. But we know there is much more work to be done. As global needs continue to outpace available resources, USAID is focused on investing our dollars in the most impactful, cost-effective ways to maximize our impact. Under Feed the Future, we are making an effort to concentrate our work in countries and in regions where we see both significant need and opportunity to drive long-term sustainable progress. Through rigorous data analysis, we have identified 3 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, Malawi, Tanzania, and Zambia, as ripe for the kinds of agricultural transformation that can lift hundreds of thousands of people out of poverty and help expand the food supply across the region and beyond. So through an initiative that we are calling Feed the Future Accelerator, we are doubling down on our investments in these 3 countries. We believe these countries have the potential to become regional breadbaskets, helping to feed the world. In partnership with the African Union, Accelerator will allow us to support an African-led approach to tap into that potential. The governments in these countries, by implementing the smart policies and economic reforms needed to catalyze inclusive growth, are laying the groundwork to form a regional agricultural powerhouse. We are committed to capitalizing on this game-changing opportunity in the region. So last month, USAID announced over $80 million in commitments to Feed the Future Accelerator, which complements an ongoing portfolio of nearly $500 million in investments from across the US government in these 3 countries. And over the course of this week, we've seen that number grow. On Tuesday, for example, the Millennium Challenge Corporation announced a new $491 million compact with Zambia, with MCC providing $458 million and the government of Zambia contributing $33 million to boost agricultural productivity and investment. And as we ramp up our investments in these priority countries, the US and other donors are also investing in the hard infrastructure that farmers need to access affordable agricultural inputs and then to transport what they grow to markets across the region. Under the umbrella of the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, or PGI, we are investing in the Libido Corridor, an ambitious infrastructure project stretching from the port of Libido on Angola's Atlantic coast through the Democratic Republic of the Congo to Zambia and on to Tanzania. These investments will directly benefit smallholder farmers and agricultural small and medium-sized enterprises by enabling them to scale up operations, create linkages to agro-processing and storage, create jobs, and drive growth. Our ambition is that this economic corridor, enhanced by our investments in Accelerator, will raise incomes among small and medium-sized farm holders, especially women farmers, while also contributing to regional trade and market linkages, catalyzing the kinds of agricultural growth needed to enable countries not just to provide for their own people, but to become major food exporters. And we know that these investments in infrastructure and food security are also building a greater climate resilience in a region battling the impacts of climate change. USAID has announced over $38 million in new research investments with a host of US universities that will focus on developing climate-smart innovations to build resilience and support smallholder farmers in Accelerator countries specifically and across Africa more broadly. But we know that the United States government cannot do this alone, which is why we are excited that the private sector is joining us in this effort, with major companies such as Bayer and OFI, one of the largest coffee suppliers in the world, investing over $150 million in Malawi, Tanzania, and Zambia. And earlier this week, you may have heard from Bayer and OFI about the investments they are making. Bayer will invest $35 million in building a new seed production facility in Zambia, which is expected to open in March of next year. The hybrid seeds Bayer will produce will be sold across the region, contributing to a more integrated regional seed market that benefits smallholder farmers in neighboring countries. OFI, one of the largest coffee producers and exporters in Tanzania and Zambia, will invest over $80 million during the next 4 years in Zambia and Tanzania's coffee value chains. These investments will boost local economies and generate additional income for farming communities. This kind of partnership with the private sector, with local African leaders, with other donors and beyond, this is what is going to be vital to our efforts. Together, we will create an engine that can help feed hungry people, not just in these 3 countries, but truly across the African continent. Thank you so much.
Isobel Coleman, Deputy Administrator of USAID, thank you for your leadership, your support, collaboration, and partnership with the African Union, and certainly with innumerable African countries through the ambitious and very impactful Feed the Future initiative and significant US investments in the Lobito corridor, which is going to be strategically important for accelerating the movement of people, products across that particular region. Now, this morning we conclude our session. As we do so, I'd like to say that we do that with a can-do spirit, as well as the desire to move forward with the inspiration and commitment that our speakers have shared with us today. As we've listened, I don't know about you, but what I've taken away is this, that we really do see a blueprint for a future where food security indeed becomes a fundamental right and not a privilege. A future where lives and communities are truly transformed, a future where the ingenuity of technology transforms what God and nature has blessed us with in abundance into value-added, wealth-creating processed products. May we leave here today with renewed determination to build partnerships, embrace innovation, and champion policies that pave the way for a more resilient and more equitable world. Thank you all for joining us during this morning's session and for the work that every single one of you does to support this vital transformative cause. Once again, my name is Victor Ladokun, and it's really been a wonderful pleasure being with you this morning. Good morning.